Welcome to this Swishoes Forum podcast on diversity. I'm joined by Fiona Revel, Pramod Prasanth, Mark Roth, Amelia Vasilaikou, Cameron Smith, Erchan Solmaz, Eduardo Gatti and Ovidiu Slimac. Swishoes Forums are open. Anyone may join. There are no formal presentations and no agenda. Anyone may subscribe to Swishoes on Substack. We're talking about diversity in this episode, the cognitive kind, in organisations, teams and personally. So let me hand you over to the panel where Fiona is about to start.
Well, hi everybody. It's Fiona calling in from Houston, Texas. With a Scottish accent, just to avoid any confusion for those who haven't heard me before. So I really just piggybacking on what Bill introduced. This is about cognitive diversity. And I think it starts with a bit of a paradox. I think it's interesting because the paradox is our businesses, our organizations both want standardization, but innovation. And so you could say that cognitive diversity is about coverage. And being a former chess player, I think it's how the organization sees the whole chessboard. The cognitive diversity going on from an earlier podcast covers is our sensing mechanism. And really you could say it's a bit of the neurodiverse side. It's a bit of an uncomfortable advantage because the neurodiverse colleagues are noticing the anomalies that we might miss, persisting and exploring edge causes. They might challenge assumptions without any kind of filtering and hold unconventional mental models and reveal new options. So I think cognitive diversity is how organizations reconcile conformity and creativity. And it's the only way a system can be both stable and adaptive.
Thank you. Anyone like to follow on from Fiona?
I do have a question, actually. So the question is, what's the counterfactual here? Are we talking about team with diverse cognitive skills or an individual with diverse ability, a homogeneous team, but with dissent allowed? I mean, what would be the counterfactual?
If I could answer, maybe to say it's more about the team. So as examples that we would have in procurement, we are going to see in an organization, the procurement team is going to see the supplier instability first, whereas operations might see the process drift first. Finance is going to see your margin compression first. And usually the neurodiverse colleagues are going to see the pattern anomalies wherever they are. And the engineers, just to bring in the technical side, are going to see probably the failure modes first. So in the context I'm talking, it's an organization, a business organization, if that helps.
I think it goes also beyond the cognitive element, I mean, I'm very much on this Myers-Briggs thing when it comes to putting teams together, the whole personality element. There's an emotional element to it, right? The way people see the world and so on. And I think this is also part of the diversity that for me goes beyond just the cognitive element. And yes, the cognitive is very important. And it's not necessarily just a team. It's also single people that come in with a very broad frame of mind, let's say, with different experiences. And then there is others, they have been doing the same thing all life long, right? That's the super experts. They're also valuable, but they only work in the combination of a whole team around. So I think there's so many dimensions to diversity. Maybe we have to pin it down a little bit or just allow everything,
I believe there is a cultural influence as well, the biases that come also from the countries that we come from, the beliefs. It could be also religious beliefs. It could be also other types of beliefs. But there are definitely factors that affect the view of the profession that we are doing, how we interact, if we are reactive, if we are proactive, and this brings the diversity in the team.
So I'm going to go further than Mark probably wants and suggest that diversity can actually, in a good way, lead to conflict, and that conflict within an organization can be very positive. in terms of driving different ideas and testing them internally. A team that celebrates Myers-Briggs can end up being a little bit too cozy and conflict avoiding. I'm not sure that is always a good thing.
But I completely disagree. If you have this typical ENTJ type of person in a team, and then you have, the IS EPs next to it, you will have conflict by definition. And that's exactly why you do it, right? I mean, if I just hire everyone from one corner on this matrix, right, on the 4x4 matrix, then you would have the cozy thing that is not effective. But that's exactly what you don't do. You compile those teams so that you have those different elements and, they kind of complement each other.
Then this is how it should work. And this is how we embrace diversity in a company, as long as the company and the heads of the company do acknowledge this diversity, and they create a safe space for people to interact, for people to actually share their different opinions, because it's very easy to see that people are penalized for sharing their opinion openly with someone who is of this category or the other category, and they don't speak the same language, but maybe they do have the same goal, or they say it in a different way.
You're both saying that the team should make efforts to be inclusive. I'm not saying that. I'm saying that sometimes there is benefit from out and out conflict, complete falling out, going their own directions, developing completely separate theories, fighting for resources, and doing 2 or 3 or 4 different things that appear to be completely wasteful of the organization's resources because they're mutually incompatible. But at the end of the day, the one that survives will have survived because it had proven itself to be better in the white heat of conflict.
I think that actually would work, but that was one of the question. One of the outcome of diversity is conflict. So because there is divergence, that word itself is like, and how the divergence is managed, very often conflict is one of the way in which it will get managed, right? The maturity of the organization would be in how that particular thing gets managed. And in many organizations, they avoid that. That's the way diversity goes away, because you avoid conflict. That means you avoid divergence. That means you kind of conform to whatever is accepted, whatever is the minimum accepted thing. Over a period of time, it's about organizations. It's about how recruitment happens. If you look at job descriptions, right, it's very, very non-divergent. I mean, it's very normalized. Almost all the JDs that you will find out there are normalized. I mean, there is no room for diversity there. I mean, and very often the diversity word is then saying, oh, we accept different genders. That's kind of the diversity presentation, not cognitive diverse. I mean, that is never accepted.
Pramod, you sort of conflict avoidance, conformity, acceptance, not necessarily good things is what I hear you saying, Pramod, which I love. Cameron.
I've got a team of myself and 5 others. A French woman who's single. I've got a married Irish guy who lives in Basel, works with me. I've got a Montenegrin American who lives in Staten Island, New York. I've got an English guy who lives in Neuchâtel, Canton Neuchâtel. And a Polish colleague who lives in Warsaw. They're all very, very different people. I didn't go looking for that level of diversity. What I do have, though, is within that spectrum of personalities and backgrounds and interests and likes and dislikes and all the rest of it that is life's rich tapestry, I've got the ability to be able to challenge them, and they've got the ability to challenge me. And we do it in a way that, yeah, there's conflict, but it's done in a nice way. It's done in a productive way. I don't care what the outcome is. I always take the view that my outcome is a pool of one, and I need other people to challenge me. Otherwise, it's just my way, right? So that's not challenging me and my thinking and lifting me up as well. It's that whole, what is it, a rising tide floats all boats. That's the kind of thinking we want. I want there to be open conflict, but done in a nice way, done in a pleasant way, done in a productive way. If you've got an argument, bring it. If you've got an argument that you want to run, always be ready for the counter that is likely to come at it, because the argument that we might have in my team might or might not prepare you for the argument that you're going to have with a stakeholder or a supplier or a regulator or any other form of organisation. You need that conflict, that diversity of thinking, that diversity of ideas in order to prepare yourself for whatever may come. Might be the bullets that you see, might also be the unseen bullets that whiz by your head. It also might be the bullets that you hit. Be prepared for everything.
And do you do anything, Cameron, when you've got new people in the team to introduce them to the culture, to make sure that they're not just complying, to help them to disagree with you, to argue with you, to
I'm
tell
open
you to shut up?
I'm a fairly open book with them. I always tell them that we're a flat structure. Yes, there's a hierarchy. There's a nominal hierarchy in Workday, and I get paid more than them, and I get to tell them what to do in terms of work order and structure and tasks and priorities and goals and targets and all of the other things that are work's rich tapestry. But I want them to be open enough and to be able to challenge me. I may not agree with it. I may not implement what they suggest in its entirety, but most times I go, you know what, I haven't thought of that. That's a really good idea to add to the pool of knowledge, to add to the pool of conflict. It's not conflict though. It's more being able to express rather than hold back. If we hold back, that tide's not going to float any boats. It's not going to. It's probably going to sink a few on the way. But if we have that idea that anyone can bring an idea or promote something or challenge someone else, it prepares them for all the discussions they see and they may not see.
Would you then say, Cameron, creative friction, but with guardrails? So respectful, but open and transparent.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't put the term guardrails in there. I mean, everyone in my team's got the ability to speak their mind. I try to create a really inclusive, supportive culture that creates that friction on the one hand, and these are kind of polar opposites, but also then creates a bit of a love-in situation where we can depend on each other, support each other, know what each other's doing in case there's an absence or someone needs some additional support. It's more the conflict that you bring the ideas to the table, bounce them, and then we can go away all being friends. We may not agree with each other in all cases. I think that's healthy. It's like any sort of relationship. My partner doesn't agree with me most of the time. We can have that healthy discussion and work out what's best for both of us in the social family situation. I try and implement the same in the work situation.
Just to clarify on the guardrails, I was using the word respect. So when I say it's good to have conflict, it's good to have the creative friction in a respectful environment, not necessarily to be disrespectful. That was more the guardrail element, the behavior expectations.
Anyone that misbehaves or steps out of line or behaves in a way that I don't see as conducive to the overall team spirit, we have a separate conversation. But I don't have many of them. I'll just tell people to pull their heads in or behave, or actually you might want to rephrase that in terms, because there's a bit of, you've upset someone over there, make sure that you apologize, because you know, in 6 months' time, you might be doing their job. That's the sort of creative friction that we want in order to lift everything. And it seems to work. I'm no guru on management, but that sort of approach seems to work for me and my team.
My question is, and how do you and how do we, I'm also a visitor here, my cat, how do we secure diversity when we have new people joining the team? So proactively, so when we have people interviewing for a role, how do we secure diversity there without bias again, but at the same time, finding the people that will challenge us, and maybe they don't have the right way, and then we need to develop that as well.
I didn't go looking for diversity. Diversity was something that was not thrust upon me, but the last two teams I've managed, I've got a real spectrum of backgrounds, ages, experiences, genders, locations, skill sets, etc., etc. So what I want is someone who's got the capacity to be able to learn and the capacity to be able to work in an organisation. Obviously, they've got to have the requisite skills to get in the door and explain themselves and understand what, in my view, procurement is and how we operate. What are the basics of procurement? What are we buying for what purpose, at what price, under what terms? So obviously, there's an element of that. Beyond that, I want, it's going to sound weird, but it was strange. I want the weirdos. I want the people who are obsessive on detail. I want the people who can think broadly and have that spectrum. I don't want people who are fixated on one outcome. I want people that are open enough to bring benchmarking from other organisations. I want the people who can really rip into a problem, pull it apart, put it back together, analyse the elements of it, know what the stakeholders want and know how to get it, obviously committing to project management timelines. I don't ask for much, but if you can get those sort of things and have that breadth of experience, that's good enough for me to get that diversity of opinion.
Even if you've got a diverse group, isn't there a danger that over time, the five of you, as I think in your case, that you do tend to coalesce?
Yep. There's a whole lot of studies on that around flatmates, people who live together. They come into a share house together, 3, 4, 5, 6 people, but they then start to merge and meld all into one. And you need that for cohesion, obviously, but sometimes, as you allude to, you can push it a little bit too far, and you don't end up with 6 individuals. You end up with one, or the alternative, as I've had in share houses, to use that to continue that analogy, you end up with such a frictious organisation that the whole thing splits apart and everyone goes their own separate ways. So yes, there is that melding, that mixture of people that start to gel and operate within that current. But equally, the job of a manager is to create that healthy competition and respectful creative conflict in order to get the best out of everyone, including the manager.
That's a very interesting topic, but it's so wide. And when I think of diversity, I think about personal styles, but you mentioned, age, gender diversity, etc. One thing I realized is, yes, I want people to be diverse in how, their brain works, and etc. But of course, a team has a goal, and then they all need to be kind of at least somewhat like-minded and agreeing on the goal to achieve. So we can be diverse in how we work, etc., how we interact with people, but in the end, there's a common goal. So as long as this is secured, it's fine. And in my team, the same as Cameron, when we have newcomers, I just make sure we understand the culture, because my culture and the culture in our team is we have to be able to speak openly, to express our ideas, to get conflicts or disagreements, that, one has an opinion in one way, the other way, and we just make sure that this happens. And as I'm saying this, it just reminds me of something. I used to work in customer service, and I had customers, automotive tier 1 suppliers, both French companies, and they each had, multiple sites across Europe. And one thing I realized is there's a company culture. So that must be driven by, how they hire the people. Plus, it might be that once you are in the company, you adopt the culture as well. And I had one of them, I could not rely on them at all. I could not trust anything they were telling me. I've been usually talking to procurement and supply chain people. And the other one, they were a lot more reliable and trustworthy. And our collaboration was totally different. And what struck me is I was into the plastic business. So the people I was talking to were not the same as the people as another person I knew who was selling robotics, robots to the same company. He talked to equipment, procurement people, different people. He had the exact same experience. And this tells you about, how diversity works. It might be specific to France, because one more thing, which I must say here, it's very interesting culturally, which is I had a great guy with whom I worked. He told me about his experience when he applied for jobs. He did a training assignment as an engineer, right? The last one. And then he was about to start his career. He said, hey, I'm happy here. I love working here. Would you have a job open, afterwards? Could I stay here, get hired? And the guy said, no, you don't come from the right school. Me, my manager, and everybody here, we all come from the same school. So, try your luck with the US firms. They don't look at this. And indeed, when I met him, we were working for a company that had been taken over by a US company. A great guy. They tried him for 6 to 9 months, and they didn't hire him because he doesn't come from the right school, because they all come from the same format. And that's amazing to me. So it can go also this way. Just I wanted to at least contribute a little bit before I disappear in 3 minutes.
Thanks for raising the theme of culture, because I think this is culture a good thing? Doesn't culture imply conformity to a way of behaving? Even a good culture implies some sort of conformance or conformity.
The HR team in my company must shudder every time I raise an issue with them, because I don't tend to conform with the company mindset. That I completely commit to the company values and behaviors and all that, but I try and do things a little bit left field. So, and I try and get my guys to think a little bit more left field and a little bit more right field as well, so that they've got that breadth of thinking. In a couple of weeks, we're going whitewater rafting as a bit of a team building exercise. It's kind of amazing that I rang HR to talk about like health and safety and all the forms I need to fill in. And she's like, what are you ringing me for? Like, I don't care. It's your team. You do what you want. So I think that's one of the benefits of living in Switzerland. But my job on that boat, where there's going to be my manager and me and the other 5 members of my team, is to just sit back and watch how they conflict and how they have different thinking in each of them's turn to steer the boat and pilot the boat down the river. We've done it on the basis that no one should drown because it just reflects badly on everyone and it's just a really bad thing to happen. I'm just going to sit back and watch the way in which they interact with each other, because I think you get a sense from a slight distance, even though you're proximate to each other, you can see the slight differences to how they interact with each other,
I'm going to say something, Cameron, that maybe no one else has thought, maybe they have. Is there something in the fact that your whole team is willing to go whitewater rafting that is a slight alarm sign?
No. Last year we did a hike in the Alps. We walked up to an SAC hut above Grindelwald. My job there was to just go, guys, we've got to get to there. Here's a map. Crack on. I'm just going to watch. I'm going to watch and support and watch everyone support each other and watch one woman just charge off into the distance and then the others bring her back, and how they interact. And when it got a bit slippery, make sure that everyone was safe.
I was trying to say that there's a lot of people who wouldn't want to either go out to Grindelwald to climb mountains or go whitewater rafting, but they're not in your team.
I checked with them all first, and I'm trying to do something that tests them. Right, because I don't want them to relax into their comfort zone. Now, I've done this before. I've sense checked it. It's fun. It's really cool. I checked with them all to see whether they'd be up for it. They said yes, happy days. Let's crack on. We picked a date, got the approval from the boss. She's coming as well. No one will drown. But everyone, I think, needs to be put in a position of being comfortably uncomfortable. So not in the position of danger, but testing themselves, because it's only once you test the boundaries of your own energies, your own...
Okay, I'm just going to check. I might be on my own here, but does anybody else see a red flag in those sort of outings?
Yes, red flag. Well, I wouldn't call it a red flag, but connecting with people that have some fears doesn't mean that they don't want to get out of their comfort zone. For example, if someone is afraid of height, they don't want to get to the mountain, or if someone they don't want to fly, someone could be claustrophobic, etc., etc. And then for me, the question is here. You ask everyone, which is great, and people should get out of their comfort zone. Up to which point where do you cross the line that it becomes too personal and not for business reasons?
That's a fair question. I displayed, I think, a level of sensitivity towards each of their differences. I asked them whether they'd be up for it, and all of them said, hell yeah. There's one guy who is a bit apprehensive, but I then explained what the danger was. I sent him the video of what it means and what we're likely to encounter and the risks and the assurances and the fact that we've got the support. And he felt confident enough to be able to do that. But if one person out of all of those 7 had said no, I would have been respectful enough to pull the idea and find something else to do. Right?
I'm not saying it's not great the way you've handled it, Cameron. I'm just raising the ever so slight suspicion that somehow or other your team has pre-selected itself to all want to do that.
They had no idea up until about a month ago when I raised it with them, and because I just laid out little breadcrumbs. I want to get them thinking that this is not the ordinary course of business. You go into the office, you log onto Outlook or Teams or whatever it is. You don't pick up a paddle and a life jacket. Like, I want them to be out of their comfort zone. I want them to think. I want them to be able to express themselves outside of the office environment so that I can see what the conflicts might be, so that I can respond to them. If anyone had raised a red flag and said, "No, I'm not up for that," I wouldn't have done it. Wouldn't have even entertained it.
You remind me, in one of the companies I was when I was back in Greece. So our manager was really pushing us in a good way because we also want to do different things, and there was an idea of doing paragliding. We got a no from HR.
Yeah, probably not.
So just to give you an idea, we're quite a small team, 5 people. But yeah, I wanted to share that also that it is important what you just mentioned, that if even one person said no for any reason, then that we would find a different idea. Mm-hmm. Because then you wouldn't say the rest of us do it and you are outside of it watching it, and then we also stigmatize that person. That's also important, acknowledging and embracing diversity.
Wouldn't have that. And I don't go, as I said, I don't go looking for diversity of opinion or background. I respect it. And I kind of expect everyone to gel as a team despite their differences, despite their nuances and their quirks and their behaviors. It's my job to try and encourage and enthuse them to hit their targets, hit their goals, their personal ones, as well as their team goals, and make sure that they're all happy and well educated and looked after, you know where the tea is, you know where the toilets are, you get paid every month, all of that stuff as well. The diversity of the opinion is the important one. It's the respect that we have to show for that diversity of opinion.
Has anybody got any views on the fact that the majority of Trump's team were never Trumpers beforehand? I think it's true to say the majority were not supporters originally. Many of them said extraordinarily strong things about him, against him, before he became president, but all of them wanted to further their careers. And so they followed a line of thinking that was prevalent in the organization and don't appear to be embarrassed when the opposite is quoted at them by journalists. Even some journalists are starting to conform to it and not ask the questions. I'm going to ask if anyone has a view on this self-interested ability to go with the flow because it's the easiest thing to do and you might get promoted as a result of it.
I believe in the case of Mr. Trump is some kind of a selection. I mean, but that's my point of view. If you want to be in the team, you need to say yes. Otherwise, you're out. So at the end, there is a filter. Who accepts is in. Who says, I disagree with you, you're out. So in this case, I believe this is an example of not accepting diversity, but it's a natural filter, which is otherwise you're out. I could not live this reality. But at the end, there are people that say, okay, for me is not I prefer to be in the club and to get rid of my previous idea, my principle. That's freedom. Everybody has the freedom to choose.
It's not just Trump cabinet, is it? I mean, we've had examples of large numbers of people conforming to Nazi Germany during the 1930s. A lot of people conformed to that. They weren't brought in and then told what to do. They volunteered to do it because they perceived it to be a way to advance themselves. Isn't that what's going on in company culture in some cases? A lot of people doing the wrong thing because they think they'll get forward and they convince themselves. They believe it themselves.
As you know or not, I'm from Romania. Romania is a former communist country. I lived at that times. Sometimes, I don't know how, or don't want to declare it, but a lot of people become yes men. Yes, boss, you are right. Yes, boss, you are wonderful. Yes, boss, you are a blonde. Yes, boss, you are a millionaire, billionaire, and so on and so forth. Nobody is willing to take the risks to the leader, the great leader, the only one. And as we saw now times, it's Trump. I'm referring to Mr. Trump, to Mr. President Trump. He is going on the path as he became as Putin, President Putin, as Chinese president, and another tyrants at the end. Because this is going to be a tyranny. Whatever we like it or we dislike it, but when you enter in the center of this yes man, you are doomed. You are doomed because you think people around you in your circle, everyone told you, yes, boss, you are the god, you are whatever. And the things are going in that direction.
Those are tyrannical regimes in some way, certainly autocratic. But is culture inherently a form of tyranny, but just a soft tyranny? Don't we see some of that in companies?
I have seen, at least, that based on countries' culture, then the companies, not all of them, but I would say the big majority follows as well. So it is different when you work in Switzerland, in companies in Switzerland. Of course, there are more international companies than in a smaller country, and it's different in Greece that I come from. The culture is different, so the mentality of the people is different. And then eventually you end up not seeing so much of diversity within a company or within the companies. People get penalized, they lose their jobs because they just had their opinions, because they had an idea, no matter in what way they shared it. It is not acceptable once, twice, 2, 3 times or whatever. That's how I view it, at least.
Mark, you raised Myers-Briggs earlier. Tell us a bit about Myers-Briggs, if you like.
Okay, to start with, I mean, this whole personality thing, we have to know this is not something you cannot change, right? You say it yourself. I mean, basically, they say up to the age of 4, you kind of, you are what you are, and the rest of the life you cope with it, right? But it also means you can change behavior. But I think what's very obvious when you work with people for a while, for me at least, it's quite obvious that they fit in one or the other of these boxes, you know? And for me, it's just so obvious when you then put certain types together that it just works better, you know, that they collaborate better, that they complement each other better. I use that tool quite often when I do. I mean, I have a team of currently 15 people and the broader organization of like 300. And there's so many teams and projects and so on, and it's so handy to just have this frame. Honestly, you know, I'm even recruiting for that stuff. You know, I tell HR, I said, look, I have enough extroverts in this team. I need some people that hold the backbone and think, and you know, are the silent ones, and they only speak when you ask them, because we have enough of the blabbers, right? It's not all the time, but I would say here and there, for me, it's a great tool to foster that, or how shall I say, to channel that question for diversity on the matter of personality. Huh? Then there is the content element, and there's you know, other things. We were the type of company, we celebrate diversity. Yeah, we are so bad. We even have tampoo dispensers on the men's toilet. Okay, just, you know, and there's a lot of bullshit around this thing. But I think that all doesn't matter. What matters is, in the end, how can you bring different people together to spark some new ideas? And for me, it's not always conflict. For me, it's mostly collaboration, you know. The conflict, yes, Bill, I'm with you there. It can work, but you need also to channel it. Because if you just create conflict left, right, and center, in the end, you will not be able to channel it into a result. It works like if you have, like, I don't know, 2 competing teams on the same topic, and the winning team, you know, makes it all, and then you have a competition. That can work. But within that team, on one team versus the other, within those teams, you need collaboration, right? And there, I think these tools can just help to create that environment you need. And on the conformity thing, you know, Bill, yes, that for me, 90% of the people in this world, they are just following like sheep. They're not speaking up, and they are not having their own opinion, and they are not even aware of their own values. They just live and follow and eat grass, you know. In the end, it's the other 10 you have to work with.
You've just raised a fascinating image in my head, Mark. Thank you for that, because I'd like to pursue it. I'd like to throw it out here and see what anybody else thinks of it. Yes, team has to work in collaboration in order to compete with another team. That's fascinating, because we've just finished the World Cup. The World Cup is about teams fighting very, very hard for 90 minutes against each other. So is the culture of that team, the opposing team? Is it the culture of the football league in that country? Is it FIFA? Is it the nature of football overall? What we have there is the very strong, really emotional, as we saw at the end of the final, really powerful emotions coming out. And what is the environment? Is it that team? Is it that match? Is it the football league? Is it the whole of football? And how does that relate to a company?
Well, about football, and I should not say much because I'm not the expert, but you get great talent, you combine it. It doesn't mean that it can work, but they do have the same goal, and this is inspiration. So they have the same vision. And vision is also something very important. If you have people that really go for the vision and they don't just follow what they are told to do without having a vision, or that's why we have goals in the company. So we have a common thing to pursue. A small comment when it comes to the 10%. I have always said that Pareto rule is not about just warehouses and about suppliers and how we separate things and analyze. It's a part of our society, and it goes from 70-30 to 90-10. the people who work, the people who don't work, the people who work in a different way than other people. And this is my view so far, and I see it every day in the companies and in our societies. And every company is a small society, every team is a smaller society. My only question would be, and then objection, I would say, is all these tests are really good if you need to understand people. You also need to train yourself further to understand people, so you know when you are hiring what questions to ask, and maybe even to add a specialist in the game in this. So maybe they see that an extrovert can fit the team, even though it's not an introvert that you are looking for, Mark, but because they have other characteristics, or when they are working, they are super focused, they can be the introvert that you are expecting. So this is my only objection here, that these tests are good. I have seen myself giving 3 different results within the period of 5 years.
Okay, I'm going to come back to this question. To what extent is the Argentinian striker on the same team as the Spanish striker? They're both in team football or both in Team World Cup. Does anybody else see that as being paralleled within a company? What are the boundaries? What is the system that they're operating in? What is the Gianni Infantino thinking? He's not in a team. He's got the whole lot responsible for it.
Yes.
He's thinking about becoming the next Secretary General of the United Nations that Trump promised him, which, look, as far as going from one position to another on a lateral move, it's going from one useless, corrupt organisation to another useless, corrupt organisation. So he's perfectly primed for it. Sorry, I'll be quiet there.
That's fair. We're running up to time, actually. As usual in this, there's no conclusions, never are. Any takeaways popped into your head at some point in the last 60 minutes, and they may have popped out again, or they may not, or you may have taken away something that's useful to you in the future.